Good evening and welcome back to Silent Souls. Tonight we're diving into 10 true creepy trucker horror stories that'll make you think twice about driving at night. These are real stories from truck drivers who saw weird, scary things on empty highways, spooky rest stops, and lonely roads. They come from checked driver logs and reports, not made-up tales, but real moments that spooked those who lived them. New to the channel? Hit subscribe for daily true horror stories. Click the notification bell to keep up. Quick question. What's the strangest thing you've seen on a night drive? Share it below, then hold tight as we hit the road, where the engine's hum hides something creepy. My name's Nia Jackson, and I've been a trucker for 15 years, hauling freight through the sticky back roads of the Deep South, from Mississippi's deltas to Alabama's piney woods. The road's a strange beast, fog that curls into faces, CB static that whispers things it shouldn't, shadows that linger too long in your mirrors. I've learned to keep my rig tight, my coffee strong, and my focus sharp, brushing off the weirdness that creeps in after midnight. But there's one run back in August 2020 on a lonesome stretch of Alabama's Highway 231 that I can't outrun. It wasn't just what I heard, it was what I found, what I felt, and what my truck carried that wasn't listed on any manifest. I'm Nia Jackson, telling you this so you'll think twice about hauling a sealed load with no questions asked, because some cargo carries more than weight. It carries despair. I was hauling from Mobile to Birmingham, a 250-mile job, my 2017 Mack Anthem loaded with a sealed trailer labeled industrial equipment. The client was clear. No inspections, no stops, just deliver by dawn. I signed the papers, didn't blink. Sealed loads pay well, and I'm paid to drive, not to pry. It was a humid night, the air buzzing with cicadas, thick with the scent of pine and swamp. My headlights sliced through the dark as I cruised at 55 miles per hour on Highway 231, a quiet two-lane weaving past fields, shuttered churches, and old gas stations with rusted pumps. It was around 1 a.m., no cars in sight, my CB off to skip the late-night banter, my radio murmuring low gospel to keep me awake. The cab was warm, the AC fighting a losing battle against the southern heat, when I heard it, a faint sound like breathing, slow and rhythmic, coming from the trailer behind me. I'm Nia Jackson, and I know my rig's every hum and rattle, from the reefer's drone to the clank of a loose fender. This wasn't mechanical, it was soft, human, a steady inhale-exhale, like someone sleeping just beyond the cab's rear wall. I checked my mirrors, nothing but empty asphalt, no leaks from the trailer, no warning lights. I killed the radio, thinking it was a glitch, but the breathing sharpened, now with a faint wheeze, like someone struggling to draw air. My skin crawled, and I leaned toward the cab's back wall, where the sound seemed loudest. It wasn't just breathing anymore. A low murmur joined it, words too soft to catch, like a chant or a plea. The air in the cab grew heavy, smelling of sweat and something metallic, sharp like blood or rust. I cracked the window, hoping the muggy night would clear it, but the smell clung, and the breathing matched my pulse, quickening as my heart raced. I eased to 45, my hands tight on the wheel, and tried the CB. This is Nia Jackson, northbound on 231. Anyone out there? Hearing something strange in my load. Silence, just static, but the breathing turned raspy, almost desperate, and the murmurs formed words. Help, trapped. My heart slammed against my ribs, and I checked the manifest again. Industrial equipment, no specifics, sealed tight. My gut screamed to pull over, but the client's orders rang louder. No stops. Still, I couldn't ignore it. I spotted a gravel turnout near a boarded-up bait shop, mile marker 88, and parked, the trailer settling with a heavy groan. The breathing stopped the instant I cut the engine, silence pressing in like a physical weight. I grabbed my flashlight and a crowbar for protection, stepping into the humid night, the air thick with the scent of wet earth. The trailer loomed behind me, its double padlocked doors glinting in my flashlight's beam. The breathing was gone, but the metallic smell lingered, seeping from the trailer's seams, now mixed with a sour rot that made my stomach lurch. I tapped the crowbar against the doors, half expecting an answer, but got nothing. Against every rule in my contract, I grabbed bolt cutters from my toolbox, my hands trembling as I snapped the padlocks. The doors swung open with a creak, revealing crates, stamped machinery parts, stacked floor to ceiling. But at the back, under a tattered tarp, was a steel crate, rusted and dented, with air holes punched in the sides. The smell hit me like a fist. Decay, blood, and a chemical tang, like bleach gone bad. I shined my light inside, my breath catching. The crate was empty, but its walls were clawed with scratches, deep and frantic, like someone had fought to escape. A dark stain pooled at the bottom, wet red fresh blood dripping slow. Then from inside, a voice, soft and female. "Let me out, Nia, don't leave me." I stumbled back, the flashlight slipping from my hand, the crowbar clanging on the gravel. The voice came again, louder, breaking. "Please, Nia Jackson, I'm still here." It wasn't just from the crate, it echoed from the cab, the trees, the air itself. My legs shook as I backed away, the trailer's doors swinging in the humid breeze. The breathing resumed, fast and ragged, filling the night, and the cab's headlights flickered like the rig was waking up. I ran to the driver's seat, locking the door, my hands fumbling with the keys. The dashboard flickered wildly, gauges spiking, and the smell flooded the cab, choking me. I started the engine, peeled out, tires spinning, and hit Highway 231 at 70 miles per hour, the voice fading but the breathing pulsing through the rig's frame like it was alive. The chemical rot clung to my clothes, my skin, and I swear I heard a sob as I passed mile 90. I didn't stop until a truck stop in Montgomery, parking under blazing floodlights, my heart still hammering. I called the client, voice cracking, and reported the crate, the voice, everything. They were livid, said I'd breached protocol, threatened to blacklist me. When they sent inspectors at dawn, the trailer was clean. No steel crate, no blood, no scratches, just the machinery parts, untouched. But my crowbar had a sticky residue, like dried blood, and my flashlight's lens was etched with a faint S I couldn't explain. I didn't sleep for days, parked at a 24-hour diner, replaying that voice, that crate. I dug into old news archives, anything about Highway 231. Found a 1994 report about a trucker, Sandra Holt, gone missing near mile 88. Her rig was found abandoned, trailer empty except for a steel crate with air holes, scratched inside, stained with blood. No body, no leads, just whispers of a smuggling job gone wrong. Cargo that wasn't what it seemed. Drivers shared tales of hearing breathing in sealed loads, voices begging for release, always on that stretch, always gone by sunrise. They said Sandra was trapped, her spirit bound to the cargo, crying for freedom or pulling others into her prison. I'm Nia Jackson, and I don't take sealed loads anymore. Not on 231, not ever. I inspect my trailer before every run, keep a cross in the cab, and pray when I pass that mile marker. Sometimes in the Alabama heat, I hear that breathing again, or smell that chemical rot, faint but there. If you're hauling on 231 and your cargo starts to breathe, keep driving. Sandra's still out there, locked in the steel, and she's not just asking for release. She's looking for someone to take her place. My name's Reggie Coleman, and I've been a trucker for 11 years, hauling textiles, produce, and machinery across the Southeast, from Tennessee's hills to Georgia's lowlands. The road's a gritty life. Long hours, greasy diners, and moments that make you question what's out there in the dark. Like headlights that flicker with no source or CB static that sounds like a plea. I've learned to keep my eyes on the asphalt and my coffee hot, but there's one night, back in February 2020 on Interstate 40 in Tennessee, that I can't shake. It wasn't just what I saw, it was what I felt, what I heard, and what touched me. I'm Reggie Coleman, telling you this so you'll think twice about opening your cab door at a seedy truck stop, because some souls out there ain't looking for a ride, they're looking for something deeper. I was hauling a load of cotton bales from Memphis to Knoxville, a 400-mile run through rolling hills and foggy valleys. It was a cold, wet night, the kind where the rain doesn't fall so much as it hangs in the air, misting your windshield. I'd been driving since noon, and by 2 a.m., I was bone-tired, my eyes stinging, my 2018 Peterbilt's heater barely keeping the chill out. I pulled into a rundown truck stop off I-40 near Crossville, a place called Smokey's Fuel and Rest, with cracked pavement, flickering neon, and a diner that smelled like burnt grease. The lot was half full, a few rigs idling, their exhaust curling into the fog. I needed fuel and a quick break, so I parked near the pumps, killed the engine, and stretched my legs, the damp air biting through my jacket. That's when I saw her, standing at the edge of the lot, under a busted streetlight that flickered like it was on its last breath. She was young, maybe 25, in a faded denim skirt and a threadbare jacket, her hair wet and stringy from the mist. She wasn't moving, just watching, her face pale, eyes catching the neon glow in a way that made my skin prickle. Lot lizards, folks offering company for cash, aren't uncommon at stops like this. But something about her felt wrong. She didn't wave or call out, just stared, like she was waiting for me specifically. I'm Reggie Coleman, and I've got a rule. Don't engage, keep it professional. But when she stepped closer, her boots silent on the wet asphalt, I felt a pull, like I had to hear her out. She knocked on my cab door, a soft tap-tap, and leaned in when I cracked the window. "Need a friend, Reggie?" she said, voice low, almost musical, but with a sadness that cut deep. Her jacket had a name stitched on it in faded red thread. Lila. How she knew my name, I didn't ask. My gut was already screaming to drive away. Against my better judgment, I opened the door, figuring I'd hear her out. Maybe give her a few bucks to move on. She climbed in, bringing a chill that made the cab feel like a freezer. Up close, her face was gaunt, her eyes hollow, like they'd seen too much, and her skin was cold to the touch when her hand brushed mine. The air smelled faintly of cheap perfume, mixed with something sour, like damp leaves. "I used to work the road," she said, unprompted, staring out the windshield. "Long nights, bad deals. You ever lose someone, Reggie Coleman?" Her voice was soft, but it hit like a punch, and those eyes locked on me, reflecting nothing but the dashboard's glow. I mumbled something about keeping to myself, but she kept talking, telling stories of hauling loads, dodging cops, and a night that went wrong, something about a deal, a fight, and blood in a parking lot. Her words felt heavy, like they were pulling me into her world, and the cab's walls seemed to close in, the heater useless against the cold. I shifted, uneasy, and noticed her hand on the seat. Her fingers left faint marks, like frost on a window, shimmering in the dim light. "Lila, I gotta roll," I said, voice tight. But she leaned closer, her breath cold as ice, smelling of that sour decay. "Don't leave me here, Reggie," she whispered, her voice breaking like she was on the verge of tears. "They left me, and I'm still waiting." I glanced at her eyes, empty now, black as the night outside, no whites, just voids. My heart slammed against my ribs, and I reached for the door handle, but her hand grabbed my wrist, freezing, burning like dry ice. The frost marks spread, crawling up the seat, the dashboard, and I swear the cab's windows fogged with her breath, not mine. "You're kind," she said, smiling. But it wasn't a smile. It was a grimace, teeth too sharp, too many. I yanked my arm free, pain searing where she'd touched, and shoved the door open, stumbling out into the lot. The fog was thicker now, swallowing the other rigs, the neon sign barely visible. I looked back, and Lila was gone. No trace, no footprints in the wet gravel, but my cab door was still open, the frost marks glowing faintly on the seat. I climbed in, hands shaking, and checked my wrist, red welts like a burn, stinging to the touch. The cab smelled of her perfume, faint but clinging, and the heater was blasting hot air, but I was shivering. I started the engine, peeled out of Smokey's, and didn't stop until a brightly lit pilot station 50 miles east. My wrist throbbed, the welts raw, and when I checked the cab, the frost marks were gone. But a faint scratch on the passenger seat read "Lila" in shaky letters, like carved with a nail. I cleaned it with bleach at the next stop, but the smell lingered, and so did the cold. I didn't sleep for 2 days, parked under floodlights, replaying her words, her touch. I dug into old trucker tales, news archives, anything to make sense of it. Found stories from drivers about a woman at stops along I-40, always young, always named Lila, offering company but leaving burns or scratches. A 1987 article from a Knoxville paper mentioned Lila Hayes, a lot lizard killed at a truck stop near Crossville, stabbed in a deal gone bad, her body found in a ditch. Witnesses heard her begging not to be left, but no one helped. Drivers since then claimed she appeared, sad and desperate, seeking kindness or vengeance, leaving marks that didn't heal easy. My wrist still aches sometimes, especially in the cold. I'm Reggie Coleman, and I avoid Smokey's Fuel and Rest now, stick to chain stops with bright lights. I keep my doors locked, my windows up, and a knife in the cab just in case. Sometimes, late at night, I smell that perfume, or feel a chill, like she's sitting there, waiting. If you're at a truck stop on I-40 and a woman named Lila knocks, don't open the door. She's not just looking for a friend, she's looking for someone to share her sorrow, and she don't let go easy. My name's Tanya Brooks, and I've been a trucker for 12 years, hauling freight through every corner of the Southeast, from Georgia's pine forests to Florida's swampy back roads. The road's a strange place, long nights, endless highways, and moments that make you question what's real, like shadows that move wrong or CB chatter that doesn't add up. But nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to what happened to me in July 2019 on I-95 through the Florida Everglades. I was hauling air cargo, medical supplies, sealed tight, no questions asked. And what I heard that night still echoes in my head, makes me check my vents before every run. I'm Tanya Brooks, telling you this so you'll listen close when your cab starts talking, because some whispers aren't meant to be heard. It was a sticky summer night, the kind where the air's so thick you can feel it pressing on your skin. I was running from Miami to Jacksonville, a straight shot up I-95, my 2016 Volvo rig purring along at 60 mph. The Everglades stretched out on both sides, a black sea of sawgrass and cypress, lit only by my headlights and the occasional flash of lightning far off. It was around 2 a.m. No other vehicles in sight, just me and the road, the humidity creeping into the cab despite the AC blasting. I'd been on this route before, knew it like the back of my hand. Flat, monotonous, with rest stops few and far between. My CB was quiet, no chatter from other drivers, and my radio was off. The only sound the steady hum of the engine and the faint hiss of cool air from the dashboard vents. That's when it started. A low murmur, like a conversation just out of reach, coming from those vents. At first, I thought it was my imagination, or maybe the AC picking up some weird interference. I leaned closer, ear to the vent, and the murmurs sharpened into voices. 2, maybe 3, men talking in low, clipped tones, using old trucker slang I hadn't heard since my early days. "Drops at the old yard, mile 112, one said, voice gravelly, like he'd smoked a pack a day for decades. "Gotta move quick, they're watching." Another voice, higher, nervous, cut in. "Rig's clean, but I don't like it. Something's off." I froze, heart kicking up, and checked the CB, dead silent, no lights, no signal. The voices weren't coming from there. They were in the vents, clear as day, like the speakers were inside the dashboard. I turned the AC off, thinking it'd stop, but the voices kept going, louder now, arguing about a load, a deal, something about cutting the lock, and no witnesses. My cab started to smell wrong, faint at first, like diesel and sweat, but growing sharper, metallic, like blood. I'm Tanya Brooks, and I don't scare easy, but my hands were shaking as I gripped the wheel. I tried to focus on the road, the yellow lines blurring in my headlights, but the voices wouldn't quit. They were planning something bad, talking about a drop-off, a stash, and cleaning up loose ends. The words were old school, like from the 80s or 90s, mentioning routes and truck stops I knew had been shut down years ago. I glanced at my GPS, mile 105, closing in on their drop at 112. The air in the cab turned colder, the vents hiss now a low growl, and that smell, blood and oil, got so strong I gagged, cracking the window to breathe. Outside, the swamp was silent. No crickets, no frogs, just the slap of my tires on wet pavement. I keyed the CB, desperate. "This is Tanya Brooks, northbound on I-95. Anyone copy? Got some weird chatter here." Nothing but static, but the voices in the vents paused, like they'd heard me. Then the gravelly one spoke, slow and deliberate. "She's listening, boys. Tanya's on to us." My heart stopped. They said my name. I slammed the brakes, pulling onto the shoulder, the trailer rattling behind me. The voices didn't stop. They got louder, angrier, overlapping now like a fight breaking out. "Cut her out," one shouted. "She's not part of the deal." I grabbed a flashlight, hands trembling, and checked the cab. Nothing under the seats, nothing in the sleeper, just that smell, thick and choking. The vents were still hissing, even with the AC off, and the dashboard felt warm to the touch, like something was alive inside. I climbed out into the muggy night, the Everglades looming around me, and popped the hood, thinking maybe a radio or something was wired wrong. Everything looked normal, wires tight, engine clean, but the smell was stronger here, and I swear I saw something move in the shadows of the engine block, like a hand pulling back. I slammed the hood shut and ran to the trailer, my load sealed with a heavy padlock as per the client's orders. No inspection, no stops. But the voices had mentioned cutting a lock, and I had to know. I grabbed my bolt cutters from the toolbox, heart pounding, and snapped the padlock. The trailer doors creaked open, revealing crates of medical supplies, syringes, bandages, nothing unusual. But at the back, half hidden under a tarp, was a metal box, old and dented, with air holes punched in the top. The smell hit me like a wave. Blood, rot, and something chemical. I shined my flashlight inside, and my stomach dropped. The box was empty, but the inside was scratched, deep claw marks, like someone had tried to get out. A faint stain pooled at the bottom, dark, sticky, fresh. The voices erupted from the cab, screaming now, not from the vents, but all around me. "You opened it, Tanya. You weren't supposed to see." I slammed the trailer shut, bolted back to the cab, and floored it, the rig lurching onto I-95. The voices followed, echoing in my head, not the vents now, chanting about loose ends and no witnesses. The smell clung to my clothes, my skin, and the AC blasted cold air that stank of death. I didn't stop until a rest area at mile 120, parking under floodlights, my hands still shaking as I called dispatch. I told them about the trailer, the box, the voices, but they brushed it off. Overworked, sleep-deprived, they said. They sent a tow for the trailer, and when inspectors checked it later, the box was gone, the crates normal, no stains, no marks. But I know what I saw. I spent that night at a motel, scouring Reddit, r/truckers, r/paranormal, anywhere drivers swap stories. Found a thread from Gator Hall, a Florida driver who'd heard voices on I-95 in the 90s, talking about a hijacking gone wrong. Others posted about the same stretch, whispers from vents, smells of blood, trailers with hidden cargo. Then I dug deeper, found a 1993 news article about a botched cargo theft on I-95 near mile 1 to 12. A trucker, Reggie Malone, and 2 accomplices were smuggling drugs in a hidden compartment. Things went south. Cops suspected a double cross, found the rig abandoned. Blood inside, no bodies. The truck was auctioned off, parts reused, maybe even in my rig's ventilation system. I'm Tanya Brooks, and I still haul on I-95, but I avoid the Everglades at night. I check my vents before every run, tape them shut sometimes, and keep the windows cracked, even in summer. That smell comes back now and then, faint, like a warning. And sometimes, when the CB's quiet, I hear whispers, not words, just my name, over and over. If you're driving through the swamps and your vents start talking, don't listen. Some secrets are buried in the cargo, and they'll follow you long after you deliver the load. My name's Dave Whitaker, and I've been a long-haul trucker for 22 years, steering my rig up and down the West Coast through every kind of weather, hauling loads from timber to frozen fish to auto parts. The road's my life, its rhythm, the diesel's low growl, the way the stars shift when you're out there alone in the dead of night. I've seen plenty of strange things over the years. Deer that vanish into thin air, lights dancing in the desert, CB chatter that makes no sense. But nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to what happened to me 3 years ago, back in late October 2022, on Highway 101 in California's Redwood Country. It was a night that turned my blood cold and made me question everything I thought I knew about the road. I'm sharing this because you need to know what's out there, waiting in the fog, and why you should never stop for a stranger on that stretch, no matter how desperate they look. I was hauling a full load of fresh-cut redwood lumber from a mill in Eureka down to a distributor in San Francisco. Highway 101 is a beast of a route, especially through Humboldt County, narrow, winding, with cliffs dropping straight into the Pacific on one side and towering redwoods crowding the other like silent giants. That night, the weather was hell. A storm had rolled in off the ocean, dumping rain so hard my wipers were screaming, barely keeping the windshield clear. The fog was thicker than I'd ever seen, swirling like smoke, cutting my high beams down to a few feet of dim glow. It was around 1 a.m., and I was bone tired, 12 hours into a 14-hour run, sipping lukewarm coffee from a thermos to stay sharp. The radio was useless, nothing but static, no music, no CB chatter from other drivers. Just me, my 2018 Freightliner, and the endless road. I was coming up on one of those desolate pullouts near Big Lagoon, a gravel patch perched on a cliff above the ocean. No guardrail, just a sheer drop into the black waves below. That's when my headlights caught him, a tall figure standing on the shoulder, right at the edge of the pullout. He was soaked to the bone, wearing a faded red flannel shirt and jeans that sagged under the weight of the rain. His thumb was out, steady, like he'd been standing there for hours, unbothered by the storm. Something about him hit me wrong. Maybe how he didn't shiver in the freezing rain, or how his face seemed to blur in the light, like a photograph left out in the sun too long. His outline flickered, almost like he wasn't fully there. I've picked up hitchhikers before, stranded folks, broke travelers, even a runaway kid once. Part of the code of the road, you know? Help where you can. But this guy, every instinct screamed to keep driving. Still, I'm Dave Whitaker, not some cold-hearted rookie. Leaving someone out there in that mess felt wrong. So against my better judgment, I eased the rig onto the gravel, air brakes hissing, and cracked the passenger door. "Hop in, pal," I shouted over the rain's roar. "Where you headed?" He didn't answer right away. He climbed into the cab with a smooth, practiced motion, like he'd done it 1,000 times, water streaming off him onto my floor mats. Up close, I got a better look, mid-40s maybe, with a scruffy beard matted by the rain, skin pale as moonlight, and eyes so dark they seemed to swallow the cab's dim light. His flannel had a name stitched on the chest in faded blue thread. Elias. He smelled wrong too. Not just wet clothes, but something older, like damp earth after a grave's been dug, mixed with pine sap and a faint metallic tang. He nodded toward the road ahead, buckled his seatbelt, and sat there, hands folded, staring straight out the windshield. The door thudded shut, and the cab felt smaller, colder, like the air itself was holding its breath. "I'm Dave Whitaker," I said, trying to fill the silence as I pulled back onto 101. "You got a story? Car breakdown somewhere?" Nothing. Not a word. Not a glance. Just those empty eyes locked on the road. The water dripping off him didn't spread like normal. It pooled in a perfect circle on the mat, dark and still, like it was afraid to touch anything else. We drove on, the rain hammering the roof, the fog wrapping tighter around us. The redwoods loomed on my left, their trunks like shadowed sentinels, while the ocean churned unseen on the right, its waves a distant growl beneath the storm. My CB stayed dead, spitting static no matter how I fiddled with the dials. The radio was worse, every station gone, just a low hiss that seemed to pulse like breathing. I kept stealing glances at Elias, but he hadn't moved an inch, not to adjust his wet clothes or wipe his face. It was unnatural, like he was carved from stone. My skin prickled, heart picking up speed, but I told myself he was just shaken up, maybe hypothermic from standing in the rain. I cranked the heater, but the cab stayed chilly, my breath fogging faintly in the air. After about 20 miles of this, curves forcing me to focus, tires humming on wet asphalt, he finally spoke. His voice was low, rough as gravel under my wheels, and it sent a shiver down my spine. "Turn here, Dave. Up ahead." He pointed to a narrow dirt path branching off the highway, barely visible through the fog. No sign, no marker. I'd driven this route dozens of times, knew every exit, every pullout. That road wasn't on any map. "You sure, Elias?" I asked, voice tighter than I meant it to be. "That don't look right." He nodded, slow and deliberate. "The old camp, gotta get back." Old camp. My mind raced. There were no active logging camps out here anymore, not since the 50s. The redwoods were protected now, and the old sites were just ruins swallowed by the forest. But his tone, urgent, hollow, like he was pleading and commanding at once, made me hesitate. The fog seemed to part just enough to show the path, like it wanted me to take it. Against every ounce of sense, I flicked on my blinker, slowed the rig, and turned onto the dirt road, tires crunching into the mud. The path was a nightmare, potholes jarring the trailer, branches scraping the sides like claws dragging across metal. My headlights caught glimpses of rusted signs half buried in the undergrowth. Danger, logging zone, and no trespassing. Their letters faded, eaten by decades of rain and moss. Elias leaned forward, his breath fogging the passenger window in short, sharp bursts, cold enough to make my fingers ache on the wheel despite the heater blasting full. "Almost there, Dave," he rasped, his voice echoing oddly, like it came from outside the cab. The air grew heavier, thicker, the smell of wet earth and decay so strong I gagged. The ocean's roar was gone now, replaced by an unnatural silence, only the drip of water from the trees and the faint creak of my rig's suspension. No owls, no wind, nothing alive. After what felt like hours but was probably 10 minutes, the path opened into a clearing, an abandoned logging camp frozen in time. Sagging cabins leaned into the earth, their wood black with rot, windows shattered like empty eyes. Rusted chainsaws and axes lay scattered in piles, coated in moss. A fire pit sat in the center, filled with ash that looked fresh, glistening wet despite the rain. At the heart of it all was a massive redwood stump, easily 10 feet wide, its surface chopped smooth, an axe buried deep in its center, blade dull but glinting faintly in my headlights. Elias unbuckled his seatbelt, opened the door, and stepped out without a word, his boots silent on the mud. I killed the engine, heart pounding so hard I could hear it, and followed a few steps, rain soaking my jacket. "Hey, Elias, hold up," I called. "This place is a graveyard. You sure this is where you need to be?" He turned, and in the spill of my cab's light, his face was all wrong, pale as bone, veins like black roots crawling under his skin, eyes reflecting nothing but the fog, like twin voids. "Thanks for the ride, Dave Whitaker," he said, his voice echoing from the trees, not his mouth, like the forest itself was speaking. I blinked rain from my eyes, and he was gone, dissolved into the mist, leaving nothing but a swirl of fog where he'd stood. I stumbled back to the cab, legs shaking, and checked the passenger seat. The puddle of water, gone, not a drop left, like it had never been there. But the smell lingered, earth, pine, and that metallic bite, sharp as blood. On the seat was a crumpled map, yellowed and brittle, dated October 1943, with a red X marked right where I was parked. My hands trembled as I climbed back in, locked the doors, and fired up the engine. The tires spun in the mud, the trailer groaning as I floored it back to the highway, fog parting just enough to guide me. My CB crackled to life, normal chatter flooding in, other drivers, dispatch, life returning to normal. But I was rattled, voice cracking as I radioed in, babbling about a hitchhiker who wasn't there. Dispatch thought I was sleep-deprived, told me to pull over at the next stop. I didn't argue. I made it to Rusty's truck stop near Crescent City by 3 a.m., parked under the brightest floodlights I could find, and tried to calm down over a cup of burnt coffee. Sleep wasn't happening. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Elias's face, those empty eyes, heard his voice calling my name. I pulled out my phone and started digging, scouring trucker forums, Reddit threads like R Truckers and R Paranormal, old news archives. I found whispers of a story, buried in posts from drivers who'd worked the 101 for decades. They talked about a hitchhiker near Big Lagoon, always in flannel, always soaked, always heading to a camp that didn't exist. Then I found the real thing, a 1944 newspaper clipping, digitized on a local history site. Elias Thorne, a logger, 42, killed during a storm in October 43. A redwood snapped wrong, crushed him instantly as he worked a late shift, his body lost over the cliff into the Pacific. Search parties combed the area for weeks, found nothing but his axe, stuck in a stump miles inland, no explanation how it got there. Locals swore he wandered the highway, hitching rides to the camp where he died. Some said to warn drivers of the cliff's dangers, others said to pull them into the fog, never to be seen again. A few Reddit posts from truckers claimed they'd seen him, felt him in their cabs, smelled that same decay. One guy swore his rig wouldn't start until he drove to the camp and left an offering, a pack of smokes, by the stump. I've driven Highway 101 since then, but never at night, and I keep my dash cam rolling, footage checked every run. I haven't seen Elias again, but on foggy nights when the static spikes and the wipers slap, I hear breathing in the cab, faint, like someone sitting right beside me. That smell, earth, pine, blood, creeps back sometimes, curling up from the floor mats. I still have that map, tucked in my glove box, too brittle to unfold without breaking. I'm Dave Whitaker, and I tell every driver I meet, whether at a diner or a way station, if you see a guy in flannel named Elias on Highway 101, thumb out in the rain, don't stop. Keep your foot on the gas and your eyes on the road. Some souls aren't just looking for a ride, they want you to join them, forever lost in the redwood's shadow. My name's Leroy Jenkins, and I've been a trucker for nigh on 18 years, hauling everything from cattle to car parts across the American West. The roads taught me to expect the unexpected. Dust storms that blind you, hitchhikers with wild stories, radios spitting static that sounds like voices. But nothing compares to what I ran into on US Route 50 in Nevada, the so-called loneliest road in America, back in August 2020. It was a night that turned my world upside down, made me question what's real and what's not. I'm Leroy Jenkins, sharing this so you'll think twice before pulling off that highway at dawn, especially when a neon sign beckons where it shouldn't. Something's out there, waiting in the desert, and it ain't what it seems. It was a long haul, carrying a load of diesel fuel from Salt Lake City to Reno, about 500 miles of desolate blacktop. Route 50's a beast, flat endless stretches of sagebrush and sand, with towns so sparse you can drive hours without seeing a light. I'd been on the road since noon, and by 4 a.m., I was dog-tired, eyes burning, fighting to stay awake. The sky was just starting to lighten, a grayish dawn creeping over the horizon, when I saw it. A neon sign glowing off to the right, maybe a half-mile off the highway. Mabel's Diner, it read, the letters buzzing red and blue, promising coffee and breakfast. I'd driven this route plenty, knew every gas station and greasy spoon from Fallon to Ely, and there wasn't no diner out here. My GPS showed nothing, just empty desert. But the sign was bright, welcoming, and my stomach growled at the thought of hot coffee. "Leroy, you're seeing things," I muttered, but curiosity got the better of me. I signaled, eased my 2017 Kenworth onto a dirt turnout, and followed a faint gravel path toward the light. The diner looked like it stepped out of a 1950s postcard. Chrome trim, checkered tiles, big windows glowing warm against the pre-dawn chill. A jukebox flickered inside, playing some old Buddy Holly tune, soft but clear through the glass. The parking lot was empty. No cars, no rigs, just mine, dust settling around the tires. I climbed out, boots crunching on gravel, and pushed through the glass door, a bell jingling overhead. The place was pristine, red vinyl booths, a long counter with stools, a coffee pot steaming on a burner. But it was dead quiet, no clatter of dishes, no hum of a fridge, just that jukebox looping Peggy Sue. I called out, "Hello, anybody here?" No answer. The air smelled of fresh coffee and something sweeter, like pie. But it was off, too perfect, like a memory you can't quite trust. I poured a cup from the pot, figuring I'd leave cash on the counter, and sat in a booth, the vinyl creaking under me. The coffee was hot, bitter, but it hit the spot. I glanced around, noticing details that didn't add up. menus with prices and cents, a calendar on the wall stuck on July 1962, a faint layer of dust on the counter that didn't match the polished shine. I sipped my coffee, trying to shake the unease, when I noticed the jukebox wasn't plugged in. No cord, no outlet, just glowing and playing. My skin prickled, and I set the cup down, hand trembling. The diner felt wrong now, too still, like a stage set waiting for actors who never showed. I stood, tossed a 10 on the counter, and headed for the door. That's when I heard it, a soft voice, female, coming from behind the counter. "You can't leave yet, Leroy. You haven't paid the bill." I froze, heart slamming against my ribs. I hadn't told anyone my name. I turned, slow, expecting a waitress, but the counter was empty, just that coffee pot steaming away. The voice came again, closer, from the air itself. "Stay a while. Mabel's always open." The jukebox skipped, the song warping into a low, distorted hum, and the windows started to shimmer like heat waves off asphalt. I bolted for the door, yanking it open, but when I stepped out, the parking lot was gone. Instead, I was surrounded by desert, sand and sagebrush stretching forever, my rig nowhere in sight. The diner stood alone, its neon sign buzzing louder, the letters now jumbled, unreadable. Panic clawed at me, and I ran back inside, thinking I'd missed something. The booths were empty, but the jukebox was screaming now, a garbled mess of voices, not music. The calendar on the wall flipped pages on its own, dates racing backward, 1962, 1955, 1940. The voice returned, sharp, right in my ear. "Pay the bill, Leroy Jenkins." I spun, saw a figure in the corner, a woman in a faded apron, hair in a tight bun, eyes black as tar, smiling too wide. The diner's walls pulsed, bending inward like they were breathing, and the floor tilted under my feet, pulling me toward her. I stumbled back, heart racing, and shouted, "I left money! Let me go!" The woman's smile stretched wider, unnatural, and she pointed to the door. "Not that kind of bill," she whispered, her voice echoing inside my skull. I ran, legs burning, out the door again. This time the highway was there, my rig parked where I'd left it, the neon sign gone, just empty desert in its place. I climbed into the cab, hands shaking so bad I dropped my keys twice. The engine roared to life and I floored it, tires spinning on gravel, not stopping till I hit a gas station in Austin, Nevada, 50 miles away. Dawn was breaking, the sky blood red, and I sat in the cab, catching my breath, checking every mirror for that sign. That woman. The $10 I'd left on the counter, still in my wallet, crisp, like I'd never touched it. But my thermos was filled with that same bitter coffee, steaming hot. Impossible after hours on the road. I dumped it out, watching it soak into the dirt, and swore I saw it bubble, like it was alive. I couldn't sleep for days, parked at a truck stop, lights on, radio blaring to drown out the memory of that jukebox. I hit up my phone, scouring Reddit, R truckers, R paranormal, anywhere drivers swap stories. Found a thread from a guy called Desert Rider 68, talking about a diner on Route 50 that appeared out of nowhere, always at dawn, always empty. Others chimed in, truckers, locals, even a hiker, describing a place called Mabel's, seen in the 60s, 70s, 90s, always vanishing by sunrise. One post linked to a 1962 news clipping about a diner fire off Route 50, near where I'd been. Mabel's Diner, owned by Mabel Carter, burned to the ground, trapping her and 3 customers inside. No bodies were recovered, just ash and that neon sign, melted but still buzzing when they found it. Drivers on forums swore they'd seen her, a woman in an apron, demanding payment. Not money, but something else. Something you couldn't give without losing a piece of yourself. I'm Leroy Jenkins, and I don't stop on Route 50 anymore. Not for coffee, not for nothing. I keep my GPS updated, my cab light on at dawn, and I pray I never see that neon glow again. Sometimes late at night, I smell coffee in the cab, bitter and hot, and hear a faint hum, like a jukebox warming up. If you're driving the loneliest road and a diner sign calls to you, keep going. Mabel's isn't serving breakfast. It's serving something else, and the bill's more than you can pay. My name's Carla Hernandez, and I've been hauling freight across the country for 15 years, mostly flatbed loads through the heart of Texas. I've seen my share of oddities on the road. Coyotes with eyes that glow too bright. Radio stations that play songs no one's heard in decades. The kind of stuff you shrug off after a million miles. But there's one night, back in June 2021, that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. I was driving down Interstate 35, deep in the Texas plains, where the land stretches flat and empty, broken only by the occasional oil rig blinking in the distance. It was a run from Laredo to Dallas, hauling a load of electronics, circuit boards for some tech company. The night was clear, stars sharp as needles, but something felt off, like the air was holding its breath. What happened on that stretch of I-35 changed how I look at my mirrors. And I'm telling you this, Carla Hernandez, so you'll think twice before ignoring what's behind you. It was around midnight, the road dead quiet, no other rigs in sight. I was cruising at 65, sipping cold coffee, my 2019 Peterbilt humming steady. The CB was silent, no chatter from the usual night owls, and my radio kept fading to static, so I turned it off and let the engine's drone keep me company. That's when I noticed them in my side mirror. Faint headlights, flickering like a dying bulb, tailing me about a quarter-mile back. They weren't steady like a car or rig, but pulsing, dimming to nothing, then flaring bright, almost blinding in the dark. I squinted, trying to make out the vehicle, but it was just those lights. No shape, no outline, like they were floating on their own. I've seen plenty of tailgaters, but this was different, too erratic, too unnatural. I slowed to 55, thinking they'd pass, but the lights kept pace, matching my speed, still flickering. My gut twisted and I muttered to myself, "Come on, Carla, just some drunk or a busted alternator." But deep down, I wasn't so sure. I flicked on the CB, keyed the mic. "This is Carla Hernandez, northbound on I-35 near mile 320. Anyone back there with wonky lights? Over." Dead air, just a low hiss. I tried again, switching channels, but nothing came through. No voices, no static bursts, just silence. The lights stayed glued to my tail, weaving slightly, like they were teasing me. I sped up to 70, then 75, pushing the limit, but they didn't fall back or close in, just held that same distance, pulsing like a heartbeat. I glanced at the dashboard clock, 12:17 a.m. Then I noticed something weirder. The light's rhythm wasn't random. It was steady, deliberate, like Morse code. I'd learned a bit of it years ago, messing around with an old-timer driver. Dot dash, pause, dash dot dot. I scribbled it on a notepad at the next straightaway. FOLLOW. "Follow?" I whispered, my voice sounding small in the cab. "Follow where?" My skin prickled and I gripped the wheel tighter, eyes darting between the road and the mirror. The planes rolled by, oil rigs winking like distant lighthouses, the only signs of life in the endless dark. I was nearing an overpass at mile 328, a concrete beast that loomed out of the night, when those lights surged forward, closing the gap fast. They flared so bright I had to squint, the glare burning my eyes through the mirrors. For a split second I saw it, a rusted pickup, cab dark, no driver visible, just a shadow behind the wheel. Then it was gone, lights dimming back to their flicker, falling behind again. My heart was pounding now, sweat beating on my forehead despite the AC. "Get it together, Carla," I told myself, but my hands were shaking. I kept driving, the overpass getting closer, its shadow swallowing my headlights. That's when the lights behind me blinked faster, urgent, the Morse code shifting. SLOW. I don't know why, but I listened, easing off the gas, dropping to 50. As I crossed under the overpass, my beams caught something. A stalled sedan, dead in the middle of my lane. No lights, no reflectors, a death trap in the dark. I swerved hard, tires screeching, missing it by inches. My trailer fishtailed, but I held the rig steady, pulling onto the shoulder to catch my breath. I looked back in the mirrors, nothing. The flickering lights were gone, no trace, no tire marks in the dust. My CB crackled, a faint voice breaking through. "You're welcome, Carla." It was soft, male, with a Texas drawl, but no call sign, no handle. I keyed the mic, voice shaky. "Who's this? Who's out there?" Silence again, just static. I climbed out, legs wobbly, and checked the sedan. Empty, keys gone, engine cold like it had been there for hours. No skid marks, no sign of a crash. I called it into highway patrol, who showed up an hour later, puzzled but towing the car away. By then, the shoulder was empty, no trace of those flickering lights. I didn't sleep that night. Parked at a Love's near Waco, the cab light on, my thermos empty. Over greasy diner eggs, I started digging on my phone, hitting up trucker forums, Reddit threads like R Truckers and R Glitch in the Matrix. I found stories, scattered but consistent, about I-35 between San Antonio and Dallas. Drivers talked about ghost lights, headlights with no car, flickering like signals, always near that overpass. Some said they led you to safety, others said they tricked you into wrecks. Then I found the post that made my blood run cold. A user on R Paranormal, Lone Star Hauler, shared a story from 1987. A pickup truck flipped under that same overpass, mile 328, during a moonless night. The driver, a local named Amos Reed, died on impact, his truck a fireball. Witnesses said he'd been trying to warn another rig about a stalled vehicle, flashing his lights in a pattern before the crash. His truck was found with no body inside, just ash and a melted CB radio, still crackling with his voice. Other drivers on forums swore they'd seen those lights, heard a voice calling their names, always warning of danger, or leading them astray. One guy posted about finding tire marks that vanished by dawn, just like I had. I checked old news archives online, found a grainy article confirming the crash, Amos's name, and a photo of his rusted Chevy pickup, identical to the shadow I'd glimpsed. I'm Carla Hernandez, and I still run I-35 when the loads take me there. But I avoid that stretch after dark. I keep my CB on, volume low, and my mirrors angled just right. But sometimes, late at night, I catch a flicker in the distance, pulsing like a signal. That voice hasn't come back, but I hear my name in the static sometimes, faint, like it's waiting. I've got a new habit now, tapping my brake lights 3 times when I pass that overpass, a nod to Amos, just in case he's still out there, watching. If you're driving I-35 and see headlights that don't act right, flickering like they're trying to talk, don't follow too close. Some signals are meant to save you, but others, they might just want company in the dark. My name's Elena Morales, and I've been a trucker for 13 years, hauling freight across the Southwest, from Arizona's deserts to Oklahoma's plains. The road's a wild place, dust devils that vanish into thin air, CB chatter that sounds like it's from another era, shadows that move when they shouldn't. I've learned to keep my head down, sip my coffee, and focus on the next drop-off. But there's one night, back in May 2019, on an old stretch of Route 66 in Oklahoma, that clings to me like dust on my boots. It wasn't just what I saw. It was what I smelled, what I heard, and what I felt. I'm Elena Morales, telling you this so you'll think twice before taking a detour on that old highway. Because some things on Route 66 don't just haunt the road, they follow you home. I was hauling perishables, frozen beef from Amarillo to Tulsa, a 300-mile run. Construction on I-40 had me rerouted onto an old alignment of Route 66, a 2-lane relic lined with crumbling motels and abandoned gas stations. It was near midnight, the sky clear but moonless, my 2016 Kenworth cutting through the dark, headlights picking out faded road signs and tumbleweeds skittering across the pavement. The air was warm, heavy with the scent of dry grass, and my AC was cranking to keep the cab cool. My CB was off, I like the quiet on these runs, and my radio was tuned to a staticky country station, barely holding a signal. I was about 20 miles west of Clinton, Oklahoma when it started. A faint smell, like rotting meat, creeping into the cab. I checked the reefer unit on my dashboard, temp steady at 35 degrees. No issues with the load. I cracked the window, thinking it was roadkill nearby, but the smell grew stronger, sharper, mixed with something chemical, like paint thinner. I'm Elena Morales, and I've hauled enough meat to know rot when I smell it, but this was different. Thick, almost alive, curling up from the vents like it was chasing me. I turned off the AC, hoping it'd stop, but the odor clung, making my eyes water. Then I heard it, faint at first, like a distant cry, like an animal trapped somewhere. It wasn't coming from outside. It was in the cab, muffled, like it was seeping through the walls. I slowed to 50, scanning the road, but Route 66 was empty. No cars, no lights, just the ghosts of old motels with their no vacancy signs long dark. The cries grew louder, human now, a woman's voice, sobbing. "Help us, please." My heart kicked into overdrive, and I checked my mirrors. Nothing but black asphalt. I grabbed my flashlight, thinking maybe something was in the sleeper, but it was empty, just my duffel and a folded blanket. The smell was choking now, and the cries turned to screams, sharp and desperate, echoing like they were coming from the trailer. I pulled onto a gravel turnout near an abandoned motel, its neon sign cracked, reading "Starlight" in faded pink. The screams stopped as soon as I killed the engine, but the smell stayed, heavy, making my stomach churn. I climbed out, boots crunching on the gravel, and checked the trailer's reefer unit, still running fine. No leaks, no damage. The cries started again, fainter, from the ditch across the road, where a rusted car frame sat, half buried in weeds. I shined my light, heart pounding, and saw nothing but twisted metal, no tracks, no signs of life. The smell was strongest there, like a slaughterhouse left to fester, and the screams spiked, a woman's voice begging, "Don't leave us!" I froze, my flashlight shaking as the ditch seemed to shift, the ground rippling like water. I backed away, nearly tripping, and ran to the cab, locking the doors. The screams followed, now inside the cab, blending with a low moan, like wind through a broken window. I floored it, tires spinning, back onto Route 66, the smell clinging to my clothes, my hair. The screams faded as I hit 70, but my dashboard flickered, gauges spiking, lights dimming, like the rig was fighting to keep going. Then, just past mile marker 66, my headlights caught a washout, a deep gash in the road, hidden by shadows, big enough to flip my rig. I swerved hard, the trailer fishtailing, grazing the edge before I corrected. My heart was in my throat, but the screams stopped, and the smell vanished, like a switch flipped. I didn't stop again until a truck stop in Clinton, parking under floodlights, my hands shaking as I gulped cold coffee. The cab was clean, no smell, no marks, but my flashlight had a crack in the lens I hadn't noticed before. I checked the trailer, frozen beef, sealed tight, no issues. But I swear I heard a faint sob as I closed the doors. I didn't sleep that night, holed up in a diner booth, scrolling Reddit on my phone. Truckers, our paranormal, anything for answers. Found a post from Route 66 Rambler, a driver who'd smelled rot on that stretch in the 90s, heard cries from a ditch. Others chimed in, talking about a family tragedy in 1957 near that same mile marker. A car carrying the Larson family, Ellen, Tom, and their 2 kids, crashed off Route 66, plunging into a ditch. The wreck burned. No survivors, just ash and a faint scream reported by a passing trucker. An old news article confirmed it. Ellen Larson's name, the date, the ditch where I'd stopped. Reddit threads mentioned drivers smelling decay, hearing her voice, always near abandoned motels or wrecks. Some said she warned of road hazards, others said she trapped you, begging you to join her. I'm Elena Morales, and I stick to I-40 now, avoiding old Route 66, especially at night. I air out my cab before every run, check the vents, and keep a cross on my dash, just in case. Sometimes, when the road's quiet, I smell that rot again, faint, or hear a sob in the wind. If you're on Route 66 and catch a whiff of decay, don't stop. Don't look in the ditches. Ellen's still out there, crying for help. But some pleas come with a price you can't pay. My name's Marcus Tate, and I've been a trucker for 16 years, hauling grain, steel, and everything in between across the Midwest's endless plains. The road's a grind, storms that blind you, way stations that slow you down, and the occasional weirdness, like CB signals that cut out mid-sentence or lights hovering over fields that vanish when you blink. I've learned to keep rolling, ignore the strange, and focus on the next delivery. But there's one night, back in April 2017, on Interstate 80 in Nebraska, that I can't outrun, no matter how many miles I log. It was like the highway itself trapped me, looping me back to a place that shouldn't exist. I'm Marcus Tate, telling you this so you'll watch for exit signs that don't belong, because some roads don't let you go easy. It was a stormy evening, spring rains turning I-80 into a slick ribbon through Nebraska's flatlands, cornfields and windmills fading into the dusk. I was hauling a load of grain from Lincoln to Cheyenne, a 500-mile run in my 2014 International ProStar. The sky was bruised purple, lightning cracking in the distance, and the wind rocked my trailer as I cruised at 60-mile peak. I'd been on the road since morning, and by 7 p.m., I was wired on coffee, the cab's heater fighting the damp chill. My CB was quiet, no chatter, just static, and my GPS was acting up, screen flickering, unable to lock a signal. I didn't think much of it. Nebraska's got spots where tech goes haywire. But as the storm thickened, rain hammering the windshield, I saw it. An exit sign glowing through the downpour, green and reflective, reading, Exit 237, Willow Creek, 1 mile. I frowned, checking my odometer. I was near mile 230, and I knew I-80 like my own hands. No Willow Creek exit around here. The GPS was blank, no mention of it, and my paper map, dog-eared from years of use, showed nothing but open highway for the next 20 miles. Still, the sign looked real, its edges sharp in my headlights, and a mile later, there it was, an off-ramp curving into the dark, flanked by a faded billboard advertising Willow Creek Diner, open 24/7. The billboard was old, paint peeling, but the text glowed like it was freshly painted. I'm Marcus Tate, and I don't take chances with storms, so I figured I'd pull off, wait out the rain, maybe grab a soda. I signaled, eased onto the ramp, and followed a narrow road that dipped into a valley, the storm muffling everything but the slap of my wipers. The road led to a small town, Willow Creek, I guessed, though it looked wrong. A single street lined with boarded-up shops, a gas station with rusted pumps, and a diner at the end, its neon sign buzzing open in flickering red. No cars, no people, just the storm in that diner, glowing like a beacon. I parked in the empty lot, the gravel crunching under my tires, and checked my phone. No signal, not even a bar. The diner's windows were lit, but I couldn't see inside, like the glass was frosted over. I decided to stay put, nap in the cab until the storm passed. But as I leaned back, the GPS flickered on, showing me back at mile 236, as if I'd never taken the exit. I cursed, thinking it was glitching again, and glanced at the highway. The rain was lighter now, so I started the engine and pulled back onto I-80, figuring I'd misread the sign. 10 minutes later, mile 237 came up again. Same exit sign, same Willow Creek, 1 mile. My stomach dropped. I'd driven straight, no loops, no turnarounds. I checked the odometer, only 10 miles since the last stop. The billboard was there again, same peeling paint, same glowing text. No way, I muttered, heart picking up. I kept driving, ignoring the exit, but the storm roared back, lightning illuminating that damn sign every few miles. 237, 237, 237, like a broken record. My dashboard clock was stuck at 7:13 p.m., not ticking forward, and the air in the cab turned cold, smelling of wet pavement and something sour, like old milk. I turned on the CB, desperate for a voice. Static crackled, then a faint broadcast broke through, an AM station playing a news report about a Willow Creek bypass in 1935, voice droning about a town left behind. The signal cut out, replaced by a whisper, "Take the exit, Marcus Tate." My hands shook, but I wasn't stopping again. I floored it, pushing 70, rain blurring the road. The sign kept appearing, closer each time, until it was right beside me, glowing in the dark. I swerved, nearly clipping it, and saw the off-ramp again, now leading to a dirt road that wasn't there before. Against every instinct I took it, tires slipping, the trailer groaning. The road twisted through fields, no town this time, just a broken signpost reading, Willow Creek, Est, 1880. The whisper came again, louder from the CB. "You're here, Marcus." I slammed on the brakes, heart hammering, and the storm stopped like someone flipped a switch. The sky cleared, stars bright, and my GPS pinged, showing me at mile 286, 50 miles west, as if I'd teleported. The clock ticked forward, 8:15 p.m., and the sour smell was gone. I pulled into a truck stop in North Platte, legs like jelly, and parked under floodlights. I couldn't sleep, kept seeing that sign, hearing my name. Over coffee, I hit Reddit, r truckers, r paranormal, digging for answers. Found a thread from Cornfield Cruiser, a driver who'd seen a looping exit on I-80 in the 80s, always mile 237, always Willow Creek. Others posted about a ghost town, abandoned when I-80 bypassed it in the 1930s. Shops closed, folks left, but the town kept appearing, pulling drivers off the road. A 1935 news clipping mentioned a trucker, Walter Finch, who vanished near mile 237, his rig found empty, keys in the ignition, with a note, "Willow Creek called." Reddit users swore the town trapped you, looping until you gave in, or broke free by finding the broken sign. I'm Marcus Tate, and I don't drive I-80 at dusk no more. I stick to daytime runs, keep my GPS off, and use paper maps. Sometimes, in storms, I see that sign in my mind, glowing, and hear my name in the static. If you're on I-80 and see an exit for Willow Creek, keep your eyes on the road. Some places don't just want you to stop, they want you to stay forever. My name's Jamal Carter, and I've been driving trucks for 14 years, hauling produce machinery, you name it, up and down the Pacific Northwest. The road's a strange beast, fog that swallows you whole, headlights that play tricks, voices on the CB that vanish when you try to answer. I've seen my share of weird, but nothing holds a candle to what happened in September 2018 on Highway 99 in Washington, cutting through the orchard country south of Yakima. It was a night that flipped my world, made me rethink every shadow by the roadside. I'm Jamal Carter, telling you this so you'll listen when someone waves you down on a foggy stretch. Some guardians don't rest, and some warnings come from beyond the grave. It was late fall, the air crisp, apples heavy on the trees lining the highway. I was hauling a reefer full of fresh-picked Honey Crisps from Wenatchee to Seattle, a routine run I'd done 100 times. Highway 99 is a two-lane ribbon, winding through valleys, orchards on one side, steep hills on the other, with guardrails that have seen better days. The fog was thick that night, rolling in like smoke, my 2015 Max headlights barely cutting through. It was around 3 a.m., the world dead quiet except for the hum of my engine and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. My CB was off. I like the silence sometimes, lets me think, and my thermos of coffee was half empty, keeping me sharp. I was cruising at 55, eyes glued to the road, when I saw him, standing by a rusted guardrail at a sharp curve, mile marker 42. He was a big guy, broad shoulders, wearing faded overalls and a flannel shirt, his face half hidden in the fog. He was waving frantically, both arms flailing like he was trying to stop a runaway train. My first thought was trouble, a wreck, a breakdown, maybe a deer in the road. I slowed, high beams catching his silhouette, but something felt off. His movements were too jerky, like a marionette with tangled strings, and his eyes glinted unnaturally, reflecting my lights like a cat's. I'm Jamal Carter, and I don't spook easy, but my gut was screaming to keep going. Still, if someone's in trouble, you stop. That's the code. I eased onto the shoulder, gravel crunching under my tires, and rolled down the passenger window. "You okay, man?" I called. "What's wrong?" He didn't answer right away, just kept waving, slower now, like he was sure I'd stopped. Up close, I saw his face, weather-beaten, maybe 50, with a gray beard and eyes that didn't blink. His overalls had a name tag stitched in red. Hank. He stepped closer, boots silent on the gravel, and spoke in a low, urgent voice, rough like he hadn't talked in years. "My rig's gone over, Jamal. Down the hill. Help me, please." My name. How the hell did he know my name? My heart kicked up, but I leaned out, scanning the guardrail. It was bent, sure, but old damage. Rusted through. No fresh scratches, no tire marks. "Where's your truck, Hank?" I asked, voice tight. "I don't see nothing." He pointed down the slope, into the fog-choked valley below, where trees and shadows blended into a black void. "Down there, hurry." His voice was desperate, but his face stayed blank, eyes locked on mine, unblinking. I grabbed my flashlight, a heavy mag light, and climbed out, keeping the engine running. The fog was cold, clinging to my skin, smelling of wet earth and apples. I shined the light over the guardrail, nothing but steep dirt, tangled roots, and darkness. No skid marks, no broken branches, no sign of a wreck. "Hank, I ain't seeing a rig," I said, turning back. He was closer now, inches from me, his breath cold as the fog, smelling faintly of oil and rust. "Check the rail, Jamal," he said, pointing again, his finger trembling. "It's weak, always was." I stepped back, uneasy, but walked the guardrail, shining my light. Sure enough, a section was loose. Bolts rusted clean through, ready to give if a rig hit it wrong. I looked back to ask Hank more, but he was gone. No footsteps, no trace, just the fog swirling where he'd stood. My skin crawled, but I chalked it up to exhaustion, maybe a trick of the light. I climbed back into the cab, heart pounding, and checked my mirrors. Empty. I pulled back onto the highway, the curve looming ahead, and that's when it happened. My front tire blew, a loud pop that sent the rig lurching right toward that same guardrail. I fought the wheel, muscles burning, and swerved just in time, the trailer scraping the rail with a scream of metal. I pulled over a mile later, shaking, and checked the damage. Paint scraped, but the rail held, barely. If I hadn't slowed for Hank, I'd have gone over, no question. 40 tons of apples and steel tumbling into the valley. On the shoulder, I found something. A rusted tool belt, half buried in the dirt with Hank T scratched into the leather. My hands went cold. I hadn't seen it before. I made it to a truck stop in Yakima by dawn, parked under floodlights, too wired to sleep. Over coffee, I dug into my phone, hitting Reddit, R Truckers, R Paranormal, local news archives. Found a thread from Apple Hauler, a driver who'd seen a guy in overalls on Highway 99, waving drivers down near mile 42. Others posted similar stories, always at night, always foggy, always a man named Hank. Then I found the kicker, a 1976 article from a Yakima paper about Hank Tillman, a farmer-turned-trucker, killed when his rig went over that exact guardrail. The curve was notorious, the rail weak even then, and Hank's truck plunged into the valley, body never recovered. Locals said he'd been trying to warn another driver about a stalled tractor on the road, waving them down before he lost control. A few Reddit posts mentioned finding tools, wrenches, belts, marked with his initials, left like tokens. I'm Jamal Carter, and I still haul on Highway 99, but I avoid that curve at night. I left Hank's tool belt on the guardrail, tied with a ribbon from an apple crate, a thank you for saving me. Sometimes, in the fog, I catch a glimpse of a figure waving, or smell oil and rust in the cab. If you're on 99 and see a man in overalls named Hank, stop, but don't look too long. He's watching the rails, keeping drivers safe, but he's tied to that curve, and some guardians don't let you leave empty-handed. My name's Sarah Nguyen, and I've been a trucker for 10 years, hauling freight across the Midwest, from corn to car parts, through every kind of weather and road. The life's tough but honest, long nights, endless highways, and the occasional weirdness, like CB static that sounds like whispers or shadows that dart across the road too fast to be deer. I've learned to shrug it off, keep my eyes on the mile markers, and sip coffee to stay sharp. But there's one night, back in March 2020 on Interstate 70 in Ohio, that I can't shake, no matter how many miles I put behind me. It was a run-in with something that wasn't just strange. It was personal, like the road itself was looking back at me. I'm Sarah Nguyen, sharing this so you'll think twice about trusting your mirrors at a lonely truck stop, because sometimes what's in them ain't you. I was hauling a load of household goods, furniture, lamps, boxes of dishes, from Columbus to Indianapolis, a straight shot on I-70, about 175 miles. It was a cold, clear night, the kind where the stars are sharp and the air bites through your jacket. I'd been driving since noon, and by 1 a.m., I was beat, my eyes gritty, my back aching from the seat. I pulled into a truck stop just outside Dayton, a rundown joint called Buckeye Rest, with flickering sodium lights and a lot full of idling rigs. The place was busy for that hour, half a dozen trucks parked, engines rumbling, a few drivers milling around the fuel pumps. I needed a break, a stretch, maybe a burger from the diner inside, so I parked my 2017 Freightliner under a dim floodlight, killed the engine, and grabbed my wallet. The cab was warm, the heater still ticking, but as I reached for my jacket, I caught something in the rearview mirror. A flicker, like my reflection lagged a half-second behind me. I froze, staring at the mirror. My face was there. Tired eyes, ponytail, the usual, but it moved wrong. I tilted my head. It didn't. I frowned. It smiled. A slow, crooked grin that wasn't mine. "Sarah, you're losing it," I muttered, rubbing my eyes. Long hours play tricks, right? I looked again, and it was normal. Just me, looking as worn out as I felt. I shook it off, climbed out, and headed for the diner, the cold air snapping me awake. Inside, I scarfed a greasy cheeseburger, swapped small talk with a couple drivers, and checked my phone. Reddit, truckers, the usual. Nothing weird, just posts about bad way stations and cheap coffee spots. But when I got back to the cab, the air felt different. Heavy, like someone had been inside. The door was locked, no signs of a break-in, but my thermos was tipped over, coffee pooling on the floor mat. I cleaned it up, cursing, and settled into the sleeper for a quick nap before hitting the road again. I set an alarm for 2:30 a.m., propped the rearview mirror to face the sleeper, and closed my eyes. Sleep hit fast, but it wasn't restful. Dreams of driving through fog, mirrors reflecting empty roads, a low laugh that wasn't mine. I snapped awake at 2:15, heart racing, the cab too quiet. The mirror caught my eye, and there it was again. My reflection, but not quite. It was sitting up, staring at me, while I was still lying down. Its eyes were too wide, too dark, and that grin was back, sharp, like it knew something. I didn't. I sat up fast, and the reflection matched me, but slow, like it was mocking my panic. I flicked on the cab light, and it was just me again, sweating, pulse hammering. "Get a grip, Sarah," I said, voice shaky. I adjusted the mirror, checked the sleeper, nothing but my duffel bag and a blanket. The lot outside was still, rigs idling, no one around. I tried to nap again, but every time I closed my eyes I felt watched, like the mirror was waiting. I gave up on sleep, started the engine, and pulled out, the highway stretching dark and empty. But the mirror kept pulling my attention. My reflection was off. Small things at first, like my hair looking looser than my tight ponytail, or my eyes blinking when I didn't. Then it got worse. I'd glance away, and in the corner of my eye the reflection would move, leaning forward, turning to face me, hands reaching toward the glass. I slammed on the radio, blasting country to drown out my nerves, but the static kept cutting in, a low chuckle weaving through the signal. By mile 150, I was sweating despite the cold, my hands white-knuckled on the wheel. The reflection wasn't just mimicking me now, it was acting on its own, pointing to the passenger seat, then back at me, its mouth moving like it was whispering. I tilted the mirror away, refusing to look, but the chuckle came through the CB now, clear as day. "Look at me, Sarah Nguyen." I nearly swerved off the road. I yanked the CB cord, silencing it, but the cab felt smaller, the air thick, like something was sitting right beside me. I pulled into a rest area near Richmond, Indiana, parking under the brightest lights I could find. My hands were shaking as I checked the mirrors. Normal now, just my terrified face staring back. I climbed out, flashlight in hand, and searched the cab. Nothing. But the passenger seat had a faint burn mark, shaped like a handprint, still warm to the touch. Inside the sleeper, I found scratches on the mirror's frame, fresh, like nails had dug in. I didn't sleep that night, just sat in the diner until dawn, sipping coffee, trying to make sense of it. The other drivers gave me looks like they knew something but wouldn't say. Back in Indianapolis, I dropped the load and took a day off, digging through Reddit, truckers, paranormal, anywhere I could find answers. A post from Midwest Freight caught my eye. A driver who'd stopped at Buckeye Rest in the 90s, saw his reflection move on its own, heard a voice call his name. Others chimed in, mentioning a trucker named Eddie Walsh, killed in a cab fire at that same stop in 1988. His rig had burned to a husk, Eddie trapped inside, mirrors cracked but intact. Locals said his spirit got stuck in the glass, showing up in other drivers' mirrors, mimicking them, sometimes warning, sometimes taunting. A news clipping confirmed it. Eddie's death, The fire. No cause ever found. One driver swore they found burn marks in their cab after seeing him, just like mine. I'm Sarah Nguyen, and I still drive I-70, but I don't stop at Buckeye Rest no more. I keep my mirrors covered at night, use a small clip-on for safety, and never nap in the sleeper without a light on. Sometimes, when the road's quiet, I catch a glimpse in the glass. Not me, but someone else, grinning, waiting. If you're parked at a truck stop and your reflection don't act right, don't look too long. Eddie's still out there, and he's not just watching. He's looking for a way out.